DFS community, welcome into Championship Week 17 edition here of one of the most accurate DFS shows in the industry. This is episode number 77 of the Adjusted Line Play Report, where we take a deep dive into the play in the trenches to determine game script and player outcomes. This show is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman, and you can find myself over on Twitter at Todzilla1337, and you can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. All right, folks, this is championship weekend. Hopefully you didn't have anybody in your starting lineups from that Seattle-Chicago game. Hopefully Santa Claus was good to you and your family over the Christmas holiday, so we can get this underway. My Secret Santa did an awesome job, so I got this custom hoodie. It says, respect the commish. Absolutely bomb hoodie. I got the Vikings on there. That's my home team. FFL patch, even on the back. It has the last name and some football stuff on there, so very, 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 very nice Christmas present there. Santa was very good to me this year, so appreciate that, Secret Santa. Good job there, and absolutely knocked it out of the park there. So hopefully you got something as nice as I did for your holiday here, whatever you celebrate, and hopefully it was a good one. All right, so we're going to get into the Saturday slate here. We got 3 games. We have a Saturday early game, a Saturday afternoon, and then like a Saturday evening game. We're going to treat that as its own slate, and then we're going to get into the main slate, which is all the Sunday games, and then Sunday Night Football. And then we'll break down Monday Night Football, and then hopefully after that, you guys can all tweet at me and let me know how much you won in your championship games based off of all of this info that you're getting in the information grab and making those correct start-sit decisions in your championship game. So we're going to get started with that Saturday slate. We're going to start with the number 1 game total on that Saturday slate, which is Denver heading into Cincinnati. And if on your screen this looks like the same orange color between Denver and Cincinnati, your eyes are not deceiving you. I actually went in and looked at the hex color because I have it basically as a cell reference. If a cell says CIN in it, it's going to change to the black, orange Cincinnati color and the black Cincinnati text. So that's how that works. Same with Denver. And then I actually looked online. The hex colors are the exact same for their 2 oranges. So a little bit of trivia there. Denver, Cincinnati have the exact same orange in their team logo. Just the other colors differ a little bit for them. So kind of interesting there that I never knew that they had the same orange color till now. They haven't played each other since 2021. And that was like basically the first full year that I was doing the Adjusted Line Play Report. It looked a lot different back then. I didn't have all this nice stuff on here. I really only looked at the run blocking and run stopping and the pass protection and pass rush on there. I didn't do the DVOA even back then, I don't think so. Kind of interesting. Now I got the pace of play and all this other stuff in here for your goodness. Anyway, I digress. Let's get started on this main slate here. So Denver heading into Cincinnati. It's a 50-point Vegas game total. Very surprising there, considering Denver's defense has been pretty good, but they do like Cincinnati here with that offense there that they have. So 50-point Vegas game total. Cincinnati 3.5-point home favorites. I believe that line has changed by 0.5 point in Cincinnati's favor. But with that Vegas game total and the Vegas line, it gives Cincinnati a 26.75 team implied total, which is the second best out of the 6 teams on this Saturday slate. And then Denver with the 23.25 is the 4th best out of those 6 teams. Getting into the offensive pass protection for Denver, they're number 3, Cincinnati number 30 in the pass rush category. Denver doesn't take a lot of sacks. We got Bo Nix is very mobile, and they like to get the ball out very quickly there in Denver, which leads to not a lot of sacks. So they are number 3 in terms of the adjusted sack rate. Cincinnati number 30. They don't really get after the quarterback. They're not generating sacks. This is probably going to mean, hey, Denver's going to have some time to throw here. If you got some deep options, so that would be Mims, last year's rookie. He's been otherwise a disappointment, but he is their deep threat there. I don't mind him getting, a deep shot or two in this particular game. Wouldn't be shocked to see him score a 40-plus yard touchdown in this game based off of this. As always, pay attention to the weather. Cincinnati is outdoors. It's usually not as bad as Cleveland, but could be some interesting weather there, similar to what we had in Chicago last night. Just keep an eye on that for tomorrow afternoon. DVOA, Denver number 21 on offense, Cincinnati number 27. Indicative that, Denver may be a little bit above average matchup here against Cincinnati's defense. All time to throw, maybe a little bit better than they have been in the past game. Keep that in mind. Bo Nix certainly a viable option, I think, this week. And, getting yardage through the pass game. The run game is very even here. Denver 14 in run blocking, Cincinnati 17. Kind of a studs eat scenario. Run DVOA, Denver not very good at 26, but Cincinnati at 27. So that's very even. Usually in that scenario, I say studs eat. I don't think Denver has any of those in their running back room. It's basically a 4-person committee now. There we have Jaleel McLaughlin coming back. Audric Estime has gotten involved. Javonte Williams has gotten involved. We have all sorts of guys getting run there. I think the other undrafted rookie was in there last week. I forgot his name off the top of my head, but all in all, I think, run game is just going to be whatever. It's not going to be anything that you can write home about. The pass game is probably how Denver is going to move the ball in this. I'd expect that to be how they do it. Bo Nix and company, Mims, Sutton probably the biggest beneficiary of that. Wouldn't be shocked if he gets 8 or 9 receptions in this and has a pretty solid outing this week. Denver, number 16 in pass protection. Cincinnati, number 16 in the offensive pass protection. Denver, number 4 in the pass rush. I'd expect them to be under a little bit of duress here. Joe Burrow is going to need to get the ball out quickly in order to avoid the pressure. Typically, that's going to be dump-offs to the running backs, the shorter underneath routes, which is more going to be Mike Gesicki, and every once in a while, we can have Jamar Chase in there running some of those underneath or intermediate routes for him to get open, or, just a quick slant, those bubble screens, things like that will usually go to Jamar Chase versus T. Higgins, so I don't like Higgins' chances in this game if they're going to be under pressure to really produce. It's more of a Jamar Chase, Mike Gesicki, and Chase Brown type of week to get the ball out a little bit quicker. The pass DVOA for Denver is very good at 6. Cincinnati number 4 in the pass DVOA. So that's kind of a studs eat situation too, where again, it's probably more of a Jamar Chase week, and then Gesicki and Chase Brown getting involved when he is not getting the ball. And then the run side, Denver number 2 in stopping the run, number 1 in the run DVOA. Almost makes me want to double check that these numbers are correct. I don't remember them being that good in the run game, but here we are. They're number 2 and number 1 there. Cincinnati number 16 in run blocking and number 21 in run DVOA. Indicative that Chase Brown might struggle a little bit on the ground here against this Denver squad in the run game. He otherwise hasn't been terribly efficient. He's just been the only show in town, but it is a high Vegas game total if Cincinnati is moving the ball through his hands in the air and Jamar Chase and having some success there. Don't be shocked if he has quite a few opportunities and one of them reaches the end zone. That's probably how it's going to get done for him. Just kind of based off of this, Denver looks like their pass game is going to be more successful than normal. A neutral game here for the run attack, and then Cincinnati going to be under a little bit of duress here in the pass game, and that run game on paper looks pretty bad. Denver does have a quick pace of play. Cincinnati's slower here in their pace of play. Based off of all this, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm hitting the upset alert. I think Denver can go into Cincinnati here. Cincinnati struggle a little bit on offense. They've been really good lately, but this is a scenario where it looks like, hey, if Jamar Chase and the pass game can't get going, this run game looks like it's not going to be helping anything. And you're going to end up with probably more field goals than anything here for Cincinnati. Denver could be looking at a couple touchdowns and a couple field goals with the run game just not being stellar. And that's probably how this game's going to go. And the number 2 game on that Saturday slate is the night game, Arizona heading into Los Angeles. Lots and lots of fantasy relevant players here that are probably in the championship. So Puka Nacua, people that had Kyler probably did all right. People that had James Conner definitely did well. People that had McBride could be in the championship game despite the dud last week. But yeah, lots of fantasy relevant players here. Kyron Williams, but it is a 47.5 Vegas game total. It's pretty healthy here. Rams are 6.5 point home favorites. That gives them a 27.0 team implied total, best on the Saturday slate. Arizona at 20.5 is the 5th best. And getting into the Arizona, their pass protection, number 10. The Rams, number 24 in the defensive pass rush. Those are adjusted sack rates. Arizona not taking a lot of sacks. Los Angeles Rams not generating a lot of sacks, especially in scenarios where you'd expect or not expect it. So on paper, this looks like Arizona shouldn't be under duress, but one thing to keep in mind, this isn't a pressure rate. I know the Rams actually are pretty good at generating pressure, but it looks like Arizona very good at avoiding sacks. So this could mean Kyler Murray sees a few more rush attempts in this game. The pass DVOA on paper is a +10 for the offense, 13 for Arizona, 23 for the Rams on defense. This tells me they should also be pretty explosive in the pass game. You know, on paper it looks like they're going to have time, but they might not. But regardless, when he does pass it, it looks like it should be pretty successful. I'd expect McBride to have a solid game. We may even see Marvin Harrison. His big blow up for the beginning of his career actually came against the Rams. I think in the first quarter, he had like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or something the last time these two teams played. So maybe you see him come alive. The Wilson is always a dart throw here for the Cardinals as well in terms of being involved in the pass game. The run blocking also looks pretty good for Arizona. It sounds like James Conner is trending to play, which is good for those who have them in their championship games like myself. Run blocking, number 8 for Arizona, number 8 in the run DVOA, number 9 in run blocking. Rams 23rd in stopping the run and 20th in the run DVOA. Again, indicative Arizona should be very effective moving the ball on the ground. It looks like they should have plenty of time to throw and be very effective moving the ball in the air. This is good for Arizona to put up points. Just based off of what I see here, Arizona almost top 10 here in terms of pace of play, but this 20.5 to me looks low. If you're in a place where you can bet the over, I think Arizona hits 21 points easy in this matchup against the Rams. It looks like it'll be a very, very, wheels up type scenario for the Cardinals. Wouldn't be shocked to see them put up closer to 30 in this based off of this. Strictly at the moment. Now on the Rams side, they're 11th in pass protection, so almost top 10. Cardinals are number 8 in the pass rush. It's almost like an even up matchup where studs eat. I'm not exactly sure that the Cardinals have anybody like that on their defense, but in general, probably a standard day at the office. The Rams maybe have a little less time than they're used to, but this offense is schemed so that they get the ball out a little bit quicker. Typically, we've seen that be more beneficial to Puka Nacua and those sideline throws than to Cooper Kupp, who seems to be maybe running some more of these intermediate routes. He's just not targeted as much as Puka is in the pass game. The pass DVOA, though, the Rams number 9, Arizona 17. That's +8 there for the Rams. They should be very effective when they throw the ball. I'm not too concerned about this pass rush, pass protection aspect. It just looks like they'll be pretty good on offense when they are passing the ball. It's going to be otherwise standard day at the office for timing, which is no issue for Stafford. And then the run game, that's a net positive for the Rams. They're number 6 in offensive run blocking. They're 11th in run DVOA, over the Cardinals below average at 18 and 19 in those two categories. So really, we have a +12 in the run blocking. I'd expect a lot of positive runs. 1 to 7 yards is going to be a pretty common occurrence there. And then in the run DVOA, 11 versus 19, it's a +8. I'd expect them to be a little bit above average. So, it's 2nd down and 3. You'd expect maybe on that situation a 4-yard gain. Expect the Rams to get 5 or 6 in a scenario like that and just move the ball a little bit better. All in all, it looks like it's wheels up for the offense. Rams kind of middle of the pack in terms of pace of play. I would say based off of what I'm seeing here, the Rams also should be pretty successful. 27 is a pretty high point total here, so I don't know if they necessarily go over that 27 points. I do think Arizona has potential to reach that 27-30 point aspect. It looks a lot better for Arizona on their side, but the Rams very effective there. Based off of this, hey, it's going to be close. I wouldn't say Arizona is necessarily going to pull out the upset. I think the Rams are the better team overall. But this 6.5 point Vegas line, I think that's a little high. Based off of what I see here, I'd be fine saying, hey, I think Arizona is going to hit the over on this. If you want to parlay it with, they also cover the 6.5 point spread. I think that's a pretty sound bet. Not a professional, it's not a guarantee, but if I had the opportunity, I wouldn't mind putting some money down on that happening in this particular matchup. All right, and then the last game on that Saturday slate, we have the Chargers heading into New England here. It's a 42.5 Vegas game total, so not very good. It is the third out of the 3 games on this slate. It's 4.5 point road favorite for the Chargers here. That gives them a 23.5 team implied total, which is third best on this slate. And New England at 19 is the worst on the slate, number 6 out of the 6 teams. Getting into the Chargers side, I see a lot of red in these adjusted sack rates. So 25th for the Chargers. Luckily for them, New England 29th in the pass rush. Wouldn't expect them to necessarily be under pressure in this. They're probably going to have more time than they're used to throw the ball. Just going to be very good for this offense in general. And then the pass DVOA, number 11 for the Chargers on offense, New England 31st. It's a plus 20 in favor of the offense. I think Justin Herbert can get it going in this matchup. They shouldn't have any issue against this New England defense. McConkey and company should be very effective. If they got time, I think McConkey is going to be effective. We could even see a Quentin Johnston sighting here. Josh Palmer always can get involved too. I think Palmer's a little bit more of a complete receiver, but we have seen Johnston score touchdowns on a lot of broken plays for whatever reason. This looks like a scenario where that could happen again for him. On the run blocking side, pretty even here in the adjusted category here. Chargers number 26, New England 27. So the Chargers haven't been good. The Rams have been bad. So really kind of saying, hey, the Chargers, they've been bad, but this is a situation where maybe they're better than they otherwise have been so far this year. A lot of that has been because J.K. Dobbins has been out recently, and he is coming back, and it looks like Gus Edwards is out. If Dobbins is going to be heavily involved, this does look like a decent scenario for him. The run DVOA for the Chargers is middle of the pack at 17, and New England is at number 28. So that's a plus 11 for the Chargers on their offense there. It looks like, hey, they've been bad in these 2 categories, but New England's also bad. So the offense is probably going to be a little bit better than they're used to. And then these DVOAs are big favors in terms of the Chargers. And I just expect their offense to be pretty explosive here, gaining chunk yards. It's just going to be good in general for the Chargers. And I think this 23.5, probably a little low. I think they're going to put up quite a few points here and be pretty successful on offense, kind of forcing the play there. The one thing to note, Chargers' pace of play is really slow, 32. And actually, when they're leading, which maybe they probably will be in this game, they're 19, so kind of middle of the road. But when they're trailing and when it's close, they're really, really slow. I'd expect that to continue in a matchup like this. On the New England side, for offense, they're red across the board. As you can see in the pass categories, they're both number 27. Unfortunately for them, the Chargers, that's where their best categories are. Number 5 in the adjusted sack rate, number 9 in pass DVOA. New England's probably going to be under siege here. They're going to have to get the ball out quick. It's going to be a Hunter Henry type of week. It's going to be an Antonio Gibson type of week. Expect him to actually have a pretty solid game catching passes. I wouldn't be shocked to see him with 4 or 5 receptions. So if you can place a bet on that, I'd be fine. I think 4 receptions is not out of the question. I don't know what his line is, but I can't imagine it's 4.5. Maybe it is, but I think he could have a pretty solid outing as well here. But really trying to keep it underneath. If you want to go look at the New England receivers, if you're playing this in DFS, go look at that. But otherwise, probably not somebody you're wanting in your starting lineup for any championship matchups here. And then the run blocking side, New England 24-32, Chargers 28-17. Slight favor there of the defense. The run blocking, maybe they gain some positive yardage on more plays than they're used to for New England, but probably not going to be very explosive compared to the normal scenarios. So that's kind of just not good across the board for New England. This 4.5 Vegas line does seem a little, New England is at home, but I think Chargers is probably going to dominate this game. Looks like, if they're scoring points, New England's going to have to throw, and that just feeds right into this defensive matchup, where this is maybe a scenario where you get a pretty lopsided victory for the Chargers. I'd be okay betting that they cover this 4.5 point spread going into New England. All right, with those Saturday games under our belt here, we're going to get into that main slate. The first one that we have here is Green Bay at Minnesota. Real life fantasy and football, implications here, as well as fantasy implications here. A lot of players from Green Bay, a lot of players from Minnesota that you're trying to make start-sit decisions on. And this is a 48.5 Vegas game total, number one on the main slate here for Sunday. There's only 2 late games, so this is one of them. With the 48.5 Vegas game total, Minnesota is favored by 1 point at home. This was 1.5. I believe this is actually bet down as well. So Minnesota kind of losing favor in the public, at least the betting public here, the people placing money on this stuff. Not sure if that's just recent play where Minnesota just squeaked out a victory last week against Seattle, who looked terrible now on Thursday night, and Green Bay whomped on a very bad New Orleans team. I think that could be part of the issue here with this particular slate. So Vegas predicting a very close score. The 24.75 team implied total for Minnesota is 4th best on the main slate. Green Bay at 23.75 is the 6th best. Getting into the Green Bay offense, number 2 in pass protection, 16th for Minnesota in the pass rush. So they're middle of the pack. Green Bay very good at avoiding sacks. That probably continues here. Minnesota, they always got a different defense there where they generate a lot of different looks. They're not always blitzing necessarily, but they do have a pretty high blitz rate. Can they get after the quarterback and generate sacks versus forcing the quarterback to get the ball out quickly and make mistakes with interceptions? Minnesota's actually, don't want to jinx it here because, hey, I am the Minnesota fan, but they do have a turnover in every single game this season. Does that continue here? We'll see. The Green Bay DVOA is number 3 in the pass game. Minnesota number 2. Very studs eat type of scenario. Pay attention to injuries here. It sounds like we have a couple years ago, their 2nd round draft pick Watson is going to be out in this particular game. At least that's the way it's trending, which will give a boost to Dobbs. It'll give a boost to Jaden Reed. Dontavian Wicks maybe gets a little bit more involved. We'll see about that, but kind of an interesting one here. Minnesota does give up a lot of fantasy points despite being the number 2 pass DVOA here. I think what happens is they give up a lot of stuff in garbage time or in scenarios where they're otherwise playing, a softer defense, and that's where a lot of those fantasy points have come from against Minnesota, and not necessarily in situations where you wouldn't expect it. So Green Bay, though, in their own right, they are pretty good there. Like I said, this is a studs eat scenario, so keep an eye out for that. Kraft could also get involved too, but they might not be under that much pressure here. Then the run game, that's very much a studs eat scenario. Josh Jacobs has been very effective this year. That's why they're number 4 in the run DVOA, number 11 in run blocking. Minnesota, though, green across the board. They're number 10 in stopping the run, number 4 in run DVOA. So really, really even matchup here. One of those where the studs eat, and Josh Jacobs seems like he's got very good vision. We'll see if that makes a difference here against this stout Minnesota rush defense, but probably a standard day at the office for Josh Jacobs. It's not going to be a runaway amazing game for him. Probably going to have to earn his yards against this Minnesota defense. Now, on the Minnesota offensive side, they're 29th in offensive pass protection, so taking a lot of sacks. Green Bay number 7 in the pass rush, generating a lot of sacks, which probably means Minnesota will take, 3 to 5 sacks in this particular game against Green Bay. They're probably going to have to put up some points because Green Bay looks like they might be okay on offense there. And then the DVOA, Minnesota is number 10 on offense. Green Bay, though, number 7 on the pass defense. Sounds like the star cornerback is unlikely to play, so Jair Alexander will not be in this particular game. It's probably a good thing for Justin Jefferson because this is kind of a studs eat scenario. Could be one of those situations where, hey, he's the one that's going to get focused on. Based off of this red-green matchup, too, you could probably expect a few more dump-offs to TJ Hawkinson and Aaron Jones in this matchup and some of those more underneath routes. Which do a lot of times go to Justin Jefferson. They got kind of Naylor and Addison. Addison does run a lot more of the deeper and intermediate stuff, but he's certainly plenty capable of getting the underneath stuff as well. And then the run game, Minnesota number 8 in run blocking, Green Bay 14th in stopping the run. Minnesota should be able to gain some positive yardage each and every play based off of this, but then the run DVOA, Green Bay number 8, Minnesota 18. That's a plus 10 for the defense. I'm probably not going to be super explosive here for Aaron Jones in his revenge game here against Green Bay, but he should gain positive yardage at a pretty decent rate in this matchup. So very interesting, very evenly matched here. Defenses versus the offenses. I do like this Vegas line of -1. I think this is going to be a close game. Based off of this, the Vegas game total of 48.5. Could go either way. Minnesota does give up a lot of points despite their run defense is truly good, but that pass defense on paper is very good. It just does give up a lot of fantasy points at times. So they're usually, when you expect it, it seems like their defense just kind of gives up some of those plays in those scenarios where the offense goes down and drives down the field when they're up by 14 points, and that doesn't really count against them as much as it would if they were up 3 points and you don't get those easy defensive situations in those scenarios. But I think the Vegas game total probably hits the under in this just based off of this. I don't think the offenses are going to go that great in this, but they could. Both of them can overcome this actual matchup here. And the number 2 game on the slate, an interesting one here, probably chock full of players that are in championship games as well, despite being mediocre to very bad teams here in Carolina and Tampa Bay. So this is a 48 Vegas game total. Tampa Bay are 8-point home favorites. It gives Tampa Bay a 28 team implied total. That is number 1 on this main slate. Carolina at 20 is the 11th best on the main slate. So Carolina, number 8 in offensive pass protection. They've been doing a good job of not taking sacks. Tampa Bay, number 17, kind of middle of the pack. I expect whatever Carolina's been doing to continue. They're probably going to have an okay amount of time to throw the ball, which is going to be good for their receivers. The pass DVOA, 29, not very good for Carolina, but Tampa Bay, 25th, is pretty bad. I think they give up a lot more fantasy points than this 25 suggests. So I think Adam Thielen and Jalen Coker you'll see with some pretty solid games. Sounds like Xavier Legette might be out again. David Moore, if he's playing, he could be an option here as well. But I do like Thielen and Coker to have solid matchups here. It sounds like Coker, he had a one-handed grab that was absolutely sick. He just failed to get a second foot down in bounds in the end zone. And then a few more missed opportunities where when he was catching the ball, there's either flags or it was just not a very well-thrown ball. That could probably change here against this Tampa Bay team, and we may see Coker do pretty well. I actually pulled him out of my taxi squad in one consolation bracket matchup just to try to reach some of that ceiling that I think he can get against this Tampa Bay team. And then the offensive run blocking, Carolina number 5, Tampa Bay number 9 in stopping the run, and then Carolina number 15 in run DVOA, Tampa Bay number 9. Tampa Bay has been better in the run category here, especially with Vita Vea kind of stopping up the middle. Chuba Hubbard gets a lot of run in this, but looking like more of a slightly below average maybe with this run DVOA, but should otherwise be gaining positive yardage. It's probably just going to be a little bit tougher sledding than he's had it so far this season. With the pass game being a little bit more effective, that's probably how Carolina moves the ball a little bit more here, but it could put him into scoring position a little bit more often than they have been this season, which is good for him. Tampa Bay side, 18th in pass protection. Carolina, you can see they're right across the board. The best one is their adjusted sack rate at number 28. The pass DVOA is 30th, and then their run categories are dead last at 32. So just keep those numbers in mind. Tampa Bay is 18th in pass protection, so middle of the pack in terms of adjusted sack rate. The worst matchup on paper is still a +10 for them, and that's how quickly they're going to have to get the ball out. Should have plenty of time against this Carolina defense. Pass DVOA, Tampa Bay number 7 versus 30. This is the second worst one in the main on this offensive side for them, and it's a +23. So Tampa Bay should be very, very, very good on offense here in the pass game. Based off of this, they should have time. They should be very explosive. And then the run game should absolutely dominate. Tampa Bay number 2 versus 32. Almost as large of a gap you can get there. That's +30. And then number 6 in run DVOA, Carolina 32nd in run DVOA. Absolutely crazy there with their run game. Tampa Bay should be very dominant on offense. They do play a little bit slower. Carolina actually very slow in neutral situations. They're 28th, but when they're trailing, they're pretty quick, even compared to other teams. So looks like Carolina will be trailing, so they're probably going to be picking up the pace a little bit. But don't be shocked if this one maybe gets over a little bit quicker. Tampa Bay, I think, does put up a lot of points, though, in this particular scenario. I think they're going to score 28. It's a pretty healthy amount. I think they could score on every single drive if they wanted to. They might score over that 28 points. And then Carolina, I think it's a good enough matchup that they can score over this 20 points. Don't be shocked if the over hits on this. It's just these teams play so slow, it might just barely crest that 48 points. All right, and then the third best matchup here in the main slate is Sunday Night Football. We have Atlanta heading into Washington. Kirk Cousins revenge game with him riding the pine. Pretty apt here because that's what he did in Washington for the first few years, and now that's what he's doing in Atlanta, coming back there. So it's a 46.5 point Vegas game total. Washington 4-point home favorites. Surprising it's not a little bit higher than that, but that Vegas line with the Vegas game total gives Washington a 25.25 team implied total. It's third best on this main slate. Atlanta at 21.25 is the ninth best on the main slate. Atlanta side, keep in mind these numbers are all with Kirk Cousins, -1 game here with Michael Penix. Offensive pass protection, number 6 for Atlanta. Washington, number 11. Slightly in the favor here of Atlanta, but they might not have as much success avoiding the sacks as they did with Kirk Cousins in this matchup. Washington almost top 10 in getting after the quarterback. Pass DVOA, Atlanta number 16, Washington 22. On paper, advantage Atlanta here slightly. So would expect their offense to be fine passing the ball here against Washington. Does look like a solid matchup on paper. But the run side is where you are at with Atlanta. They're number 13 in run blocking. Washington 21, and then the run DVOA, Atlanta 7, Washington 25. Very, very good game here for Atlanta in the run game. I'd expect Bijan Robinson to be very successful in that category. If the run game's humming, this is probably going to open up some of this pass game to be more successful as well. So don't be shocked if Atlanta puts up over 21 points in this matchup. I'd be fine betting the over on this 21 points for Atlanta based off of what I see here. On the Washington side, 20th in offensive pass protection, 5th in pass DVOA. Atlanta 31st in the pass rush, 24th in the pass DVOA. Big favor here for Washington. They should have time to throw the ball against this Atlanta defense, and then they should be very explosive when they do pass it. So Terry McLaurin has been the beneficiary all season of this stuff. I think that continues. He could be in line for a monster game. He's probably in a lot of championship matchups this week, so I'd expect him to be earning some people some money this season, and including this week. I think he puts up a multi-touchdown game. I think is certainly within the realm of possibility. If you want to bet a anytime touchdown or 2 receiving touchdowns with some pretty high odds there, I'm fine with trying to take that bet this week. In terms of the run side, Washington 20, Atlanta 20 in the run blocking category. But then the run DVOA, Washington number 9, Atlanta 16. That's slightly there in the favor of Washington. I think Brian Robinson will be fine in this matchup, but nothing too terribly great. Washington does play slow. They're 25th in neutral situation, 27th overall. Actually, their leading pace of play is ranked 20th, and that's about as good as they get. Atlanta, though, very fast, number 1 in neutral situation, pace of play. I don't know how often they're going to be in a neutral situation, but when they're trailing, they're the 3rd fastest. So I'd expect them to be playing pretty quick in this. Again, those are with Kirk Cousins, so it might not be as quick, but Atlanta offense does look good. Washington offense looks like it'll be really, really good in that pass game, very explosive, and the run game should be fine, so I'd expect them to put up points. This Vegas game total, provided there's no weather issues, I think hits the over on the 46.5 pretty handily. All right, and our 4th best game on the slate is at 46 for a Vegas game total. New York Jets heading into Buffalo. New York versus another New York team here, and Buffalo 10-point home favorite, so that gives them a 28-point team implied total, tied for first best on the main slate with Tampa Bay. And then the Jets at number 18, or 18 for their team implied total, is the 14th best on this main slate. The Jets number 14 in pass protection, Buffalo 19 in the pass rush, Jets 19 in pass DVOA, Buffalo 16 in pass DVOA. Pretty even matchup here, basically a studs eat scenario. I think the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, getting his footing here, they could be successful against this Buffalo defense based off of this paper matchup. I know fantasy-wise it hasn't been great against this Buffalo squad, but really looking like a studs eat scenario here, and they have Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams on that team, who I think can eat in this particular situation against Buffalo. The run blocking is a little bit different, though. Jets 21st and 29th in the run categories on offense. Buffalo number 6 and number 6 on offense, on defense. So they should be able to shut down the rush game. The thing is, with Buffalo, they give up a lot of fantasy points to the running back because they give up so many pass attempts to the running back. So don't be shocked if you see Breece Hall and company get a lot of targets in this, along with those studs in the pass game. Just an interesting one to note here. Run game should struggle, but if they're going to score fantasy points, it's going to be through the air. Buffalo side, they're green across the board, number 1, number 2, number 4, and number 2. So their worst categories are number 4. Jets on defense are really bad. They're red in every category except their adjusted sack rate at number 9. So Buffalo's number 1 in the pass protection. Jets number 9. Probably a big favor here for Buffalo, not taking sacks, but the Jets should otherwise be able to generate some pressure here against Josh Allen, which is probably going to force him to get the ball out a little bit quicker, which is going to go more to Khalil Shakir. It's going to go the running back, so don't be surprised if you get Ty Johnson, James Cook with a few pass receptions, Ray Davis with a few pass receptions, as well as Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. I expect them to get involved in the pass game as well. And then those more intermediate, longer depth routes, I think, are going to be a little cut off here. So I don't think Coleman or Cooper are going to be worth your while in this matchup based off of this. But the DVOA, number 28 for the Jets, number 2 for Buffalo. When they do pass the ball, they might be under a little bit of duress and need to get the ball out quicker than they're used to. The problem is for the Jets that looks like they're going to be super successful when they do pass the ball. Just keep that in mind. And then the run game, the Jets, one of the worst in the league, 25th and 26th. Buffalo, 4th and 2nd in the run categories. So James Cook scoring touchdowns this season. This looks like Buffalo should be able to move the ball. Maybe a little dink and dunk on the pass game side, which is also going to benefit the running backs a little bit. But it looks like the running backs, when they do get the ball, they're going to be very successful running it. If the Jets can kind of carry their weight here via the pass game and score some points, I expect Buffalo to have to keep the pedal to the metal. This could end up being more of a shootout opportunity in Buffalo. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. You always need to pay attention to that. But, James Cook could come out of here with a multi-touchdown game. You could see Josh Allen have another one of those blow-up performances against Jets, especially if they're putting up points. Don't be shocked if you see Josh Allen score 5 touchdowns, both rushing and passing in a game like this where it could get a little bit out of hand. But Buffalo expected to win by 10. I think that's certainly within the realm of possibilities here. I wouldn't place any money either way on that because the Jets, I think, can score some points, but I'm not super confident in them doing that either. And Buffalo could score a massive amount of points against their really, really struggling defense here recently. So expect Buffalo to put up points. Jets, whether or not they put up points, I don't know. But kind of an interesting one here. Wheels up kind of for all of your Buffalo players that you'd like to start, which is probably just James Cook, Josh Allen, and Khalil Shakir. Probably didn't make the fantasy playoffs if you have Dalton Kincaid. He was highly drafted and kind of otherwise busted, but if you are there, it looks like he could be all right this week too. And perhaps surprisingly, the next highest one, 5th on the slate, is Indianapolis at New York Giants. Now this is a smaller slate, because we had 3 on Saturday. We've already played 3, so 6 games already out. We take out Monday night. That's left with 9 games. This is the 5th best out of 9 games. We dropped, though, all the way down to 40.5, so it's already down to 40.5 from the number 6 game, which I think was in the mid-40s. Big drop-off here. Indianapolis and New York Giants in New York. It's a 7.5-point road favorite for Indianapolis, who otherwise has been below average for their team this entire season. So to see them as 7.5-point road favorites tells you just how bad this Giants squad has been this season. 24 points for the team implied total in Indianapolis is 5th best out of these 9 games. So 18 teams. The Giants at 16.5 look like they're ranked 16th. Just keep an eye out on that. There should be a team at 18 if they're not tied. On the Indianapolis side, number 12 in pass protection, Giants, number 1 in the defensive pass rush. So they're generating some sacks when you wouldn't expect it. That could lead to some pressure here from Indianapolis when they do roll back to pass it. Fortunately for them, the Giants number 29 in the pass DVOA, Indianapolis 25th. In a scenario like this, I think Josh Downs is going to be the biggest beneficiary where they need to get it out a little bit quicker. Him and Pittman are going to be more of the underneath people. A.D. Mitchell, Alec Pierce, if he plays, are more of the deep threats, which probably get a little bit less involved if they're scrambling and otherwise under pressure. But pass DVOA indicative that Indianapolis could be explosive or more explosive than they otherwise have been this season passing the ball. The run blocking, it was a terrible matchup last week, and we saw what that meant for Jonathan Taylor, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Giants they're not a very good defense. On paper, Indianapolis 31st in run blocking, the Giants 12th in run stopping. Indianapolis has not been good running the ball, and this kind of takes out quarterback rush attempts and all of that. So it's really trying to isolate the running back and run blocking when the team is running with the running back. The Giants, middle of the pack at 12 there. Indicative that maybe they're stopped behind the line of scrimmage pretty often here. The run DVOA, though, slightly in the favor of Indianapolis, number 12 versus the Giants 14. More of a studs eat scenario. And after last week, it certainly looks like Jonathan Taylor is a stud. So keep that in mind. Indianapolis, on paper, this doesn't look great. Kind of an even up matchup in the pass DVOA, but under pressure. Run blocking looks like it's not very good, but the run DVOA is middle of the pack for a studs eat. It doesn't look great here for Indianapolis, especially considering the Vegas line here of 7.5. Now we get to the Giants side. They're 22 in offensive pass protection. Indianapolis, number 27 in the pass rush. The Giants haven't been good in terms of not taking sacks, but Indianapolis really bad at generating sacks here. Maybe they have a little bit more time to throw the ball here in New York, which is going to be good for Drew Lock and not, throwing pick sixes. The pass DVOA, though, Indianapolis number 13, the Giants 30th. Doesn't look like they're going to be very successful, but at least they'll have time to throw the ball. Just might be a lot of underneath dink and dunk type stuff. So tight ends, running backs, and probably Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, the people getting involved there. The run blocking side, Giants 18th, Indianapolis 22nd, and a little bit flip-flop there in the DVOA. Giants 20th, Indianapolis 15th. Otherwise, kind of flip-flop, but close. Nothing to write home about there. I think Tyrone Tracy could be okay, especially if they're dinking and dunking on the offensive side with time to throw. We could see Tyrone Tracy have a pretty solid game if he gets involved in the pass game here. But really nothing to write home about. You're probably not starting any of these players in any of your championship matchups. 40.5 Vegas game total is pretty bad. Based off of this matchup, I don't even like Indianapolis's defense here against the Giants. It doesn't look that fantastic. But I think this Vegas line's a little out of hand. I think this is going to be closer than a 7.5 point spread here. Don't be shocked if the Giants cover this. All right, sixth best game on the slate at 39.5 is a battle of the AFC South. Terrible teams here. Tennessee heading into Jacksonville, and believe it or not, Jacksonville 1 point home favorites here. I believe this has flipped, depending on where you're betting. To start the week, I think Tennessee was 1 to 1.5 point favorites on the road. It's now bet to Jacksonville being 1 point favorites. That's everywhere except for ESPN bets. It sounds like ESPN bets. They have Tennessee still favored by 1. So kind of a pick 'em here, but yeah, everybody kind of on all the other sites betting the Jacksonville side versus Tennessee here. The Vegas game total has dropped like 3 points since the beginning of the week as well. So just smashing the under early on the 42.5 or whatever we were at, 43 points at the beginning of the week. People not expecting this game to have much offensive firepower here. With that 1 point Vegas game line for Jacksonville and the 39.5 Vegas game total, that gives Jacksonville a 20.25 team implied total, 10th best on the main slate. Tennessee at 19.25 is the 13th best. And again, there's 9 total games, so that's out of 18 teams. And we see a lot of red here in the Tennessee offense versus the Jacksonville defense. Everything is red. The best number is a 23, and that's Tennessee's run blocking and Jacksonville's run DVOA on defense. Otherwise, a lot of 30s and the high 28. So really just an even up matchup on the pass categories. Tennessee 28, Jacksonville 32. Tennessee offensive pass DVOA 31, Jacksonville 32. Tennessee has not been good. Jacksonville has been equally as bad on defense. Tennessee, in theory, should be better than they have been in the past game. This is going to be good for Calvin Ridley and everybody else here from Tennessee. Chigga could also see himself be pretty successful. Depending on Pollard's health, we could see Tajay Spears even get involved here. But they should have time to throw and be otherwise better than they have been this year. I think the biggest beneficiary of that is going to end up being Mr. Ridley, and I'd be curious to see what happens with Chigga. He's had a couple of good weeks in a row here. Does that continue in this type of matchup here against this bad Jacksonville defense, where anybody really is going to have success? Keep an eye out for that. Could be a good DFS dart throw for your teams if you're playing on this slate. Tennessee run blocking 23 and 25, Jacksonville 24 and 23. Pretty even matchup. Studs eat. Pollard's been all right. Spears seems to be all right lately. Really a standard day at the office. Nothing to write home about. Tennessee otherwise should be able to move the ball a little bit better than they have this season. But, probably not starting a ton of these players outside of some DFS dart throws with Okonkwo or Ridley. Maybe even Spears getting involved in a lineup or two in DFS. Jacksonville side, 5th in offensive pass protection, so not taking a lot of sacks. Tennessee not generating a ton of sacks either. They're number 15, middle of the pack. 18th in pass DVOA on defense is Tennessee. Jacksonville 18th in their pass DVOA on offense. This tells me Jacksonville should have some time to throw. The DVOA is pretty evenly matched. Studs eat scenario. Another good game incoming for Brian Thomas Jr., I think, against this Tennessee defense. When they have time to throw, and it's either studs eat or a very mismatched in Jacksonville's favor DVOA, I was going to be very, very good for Brian Thomas Jr. I think he does have a good matchup here, and I think he's going to produce. He's probably in a lot of fantasy championships or third place matchups here because he was a later round pick and has been extremely successful this year, putting up a lot of monster games, and it looks like he could continue that trend for a lot of people in their championship matchups this week, which is good. Tennessee, they're 4th in stopping the run. Jacksonville 15th in the run category in run blocking. Big favor there for Tennessee in terms of Jacksonville maybe getting stopped behind the line quite often. And the run DVOA, Tennessee 13, Jacksonville 19. I expect Jacksonville to struggle a little bit in the run category. The pass game does look like it's going to be very explosive. But if Brian Thomas Jr. isn't getting involved, it could be more Brenton Strange. This to me screams more of a Jacksonville kicker getting involved. Brian Thomas Jr. touchdowns and Jacksonville field goals. I think you're going to see a lot of that action on this Sunday early matchup against Tennessee. Tennessee is slow right across the board in pace of play. Nothing crazy about Jacksonville. Just keep that in mind. Tennessee does play very slow. All right, 7th best game total on the slate is Dallas heading into Philadelphia. This has been bet like crazy since probably Jalen Hurts was ruled out. This is Friday. I'm recording this. He was ruled out this Friday with his concussion. Going into the week, I believe this game was like a 43 Vegas game total. It's now 38. Philadelphia, I believe, was favored by like 9.5 or 10, something like that. Now it's a Philly 7.5 point favorite with Kenny Pickett in there. So really, really hammering the under on this with him involved. And then that Vegas line is actually switched. So a lot of people betting that Dallas covers that spread that was there earlier. That's kind of how the betting market is going. With that 7.5 point home favorite on Philadelphia's 38 Vegas game total, that gives them a 22.75 team implied total. That's 7th best out of the 18 teams. Dallas is the worst at 15.25, so they're 18 out of 18. On the offensive side for Dallas, number 7 in pass protection, been otherwise pretty successful under Cooper Rush, not taking sacks. Pretty good for them. Philadelphia, unfortunately for them, has been an absolute monster the last 2 months. Number 6 in pass rush, number 3 in pass DVOA. I'd expect them to be able to generate some pressure against this Dallas team and get them into scenarios where maybe they are under a little bit more pressure than they have been otherwise so far this season under Cooper Rush. That pass DVOA for them is 22, and again, that's pitted against Philadelphia's number 3. I think they're really going to struggle to pass very effectively in this. We have CeeDee Lamb ruled out for the rest of the season. It's going to leave Cook and Tolbert and Ferguson as the top options in the pass game. Maybe Dowdle gets a little bit more involved as well, but really, really not looking good for Dallas here. Philly's defense is really, really strong. We now have Lamb out. That's really bad for Dallas. I think Philly's defense could be, they're probably expensive in DFS, but this could be a really good matchup for them with no real weapons here for Dallas on offense. And then the run category, pretty even in terms of, gaining yards or, getting negative yards. Dallas 12th, Philly 15th. But the run DVOA is a red-green matchup. Philly number 2 on defense, Dallas 23rd on offense. I'd expect them to be able to contain Dowdle here. Dallas is probably going to struggle. They're going into Philadelphia. They lose CeeDee Lamb. Really, if there's any one player that's going to be viable, it's probably Dowdle getting dump-offs because they're going to be under pressure and he's going to get, some opportunities running the ball. Ferguson would be the other person I think that gets quite a few targets being under pressure. But yeah, not looking good for Dallas here. Cooper Rush, definitely a fade. He's otherwise been startable the last couple of weeks and been pretty successful there. This is looking really bad for him this week. On the Philadelphia side, it's Dallas kind of turning the tables. They're number 3 in the pass rush category. They've gotten some of the studs back there on defense, and they've really gotten nice with the quarterback now. They're number 3. Philadelphia is taking a lot of sacks. We do have Kenny Pickett back there, so it's probably going to be more of the same here. Dallas probably going to be able to get a pretty solid pass rush against Pickett. He's going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker. Probably going to be some dump offs to Barkley and more underneath routes, which is going to be Grant Calcaterra and more of A.J. Brown versus Devonta Smith. I don't even know if Smith is going to play this week, but A.J. Brown is more of the intermediate to underneath guy for this offense when it's needed. And then the pass DVOAs are pretty even. Dallas 15 and improving. Philadelphia number 15 in their pass DVOA. Again, that's with Hurts, not Pickett. On the run category, though, probably where Philadelphia is going to lean, especially if their defense is absolutely obliterating Dallas and Dallas's offense is struggling. It's probably going to be a lot more of a Barkley week this week. They're 19th in run blocking, Dallas 29th in stopping the run, Philadelphia 5th in run DVOA, Dallas 29. I really think they're going to lean on Barkley. I think they want to get him the rushing record over Dickerson. So wouldn't be shocked to see him get absolutely fed in a matchup like this where they're up big on Dallas. Get him through the first 3 quarters. Maybe he's got 180, 190 yards. And then if they really want to push for that record, wouldn't be shocked to see them, run him into the 4th quarter to get a few additional yards before pulling him out of the game because they are dominating Dallas. But we'll see what happens there. Dallas and Philadelphia, both top 10 in their pace of play, so keep that in mind. Kind of an interesting one here. Number 8 in neutral situation is the worst out of any of these numbers for Philadelphia. So a couple quick teams there. So could be very interesting in terms of defense getting a lot of opportunities for sacks in this particular game. All right, and then we have probably what looks like 2 disgusting matchups here, tied for 8th best on the main slate. These are the worst 2 games on the main slate at 37.5 for the Vegas game total. Again, this is Friday, so it could change by the end or by the start of kickoff on Sunday. Regardless, Vegas heading into New Orleans, dome game. We actually have Vegas favored by 1.5. I believe New Orleans was favored earlier in this, and now Vegas is favored. Either way, low game total and Vegas favored. They're at 19.5 for their team implied total. It's 12th out of 18 teams, and they're the favorite. New Orleans at 18 is 14th best on the main slate. For Vegas, they're right across the board on offense. New Orleans, 21st in pass rush, 10th in pass DVOA. So this is telling me they're not very good at generating sacks, but they do put the clamps on some of these offenses in terms of their pass category. Vegas at 23rd for their pass protection and 28th in pass DVOA. Probably going to have a little bit more time than they're used to throw it, but they're otherwise not going to be super explosive. But they do have Bowers and Myers, and that's kind of more of their MO in terms of moving the ball, is get it to them. They're more of the underneath, intermediate type of route runners, which is probably why their pass DVOA is so bad. But yeah, kind of an interesting one here. I don't mind them. Should have more time than they're used to throw, and that's probably good for them. On the in the run categories, Vegas has been just atrocious there, but the Saints have been really bad as well. Kind of the immovable force meets the whatever that saying is, but in reverse. So 2 really, really bad teams. So what's going to happen here is Vegas actually going to be able to run the ball against this New Orleans defense? Or is Vegas's run game that bad that the Saints defense can actually stop them? It just looks like a standard day at the office for the Raiders. They're going to be a little bit more successful than they otherwise have been this season, which probably doesn't mean much. But Alexander Mattison, probably the bigger beneficiary between him and his former teammate, I think. They played for the Vikings for a while, and Amir Abdullah, so they probably played together for a few years before making teammates here in Vegas. But neither of them probably startable. On the Saints side, they're 13th in pass protection, 26th in pass DVOA. Vegas 18th and 19th in those categories. Maybe some time to throw against this Vegas team, but the pass DVOA in the favor of Vegas. Wouldn't expect the Saints to be very good passing the ball. I couldn't even name who the heck's on their team besides Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It's really, really bad there for New Orleans. They've been wiped out on offense. Kamara's ruled out on offense as well. They're 22nd in run blocking. Vegas 8th in stopping the run. Run DVOA, Saints 14 on offense. Vegas 21st on defense. Just gross. Kendre Miller in a 3-way committee last week against the Packers. Maybe he gets a little bit more involved because they're not down so much Vegas in this, but not interested in a lot of these players or any of them outside of Bowers and maybe Jacoby Myers. But it's just a low game total. You don't want that stuff for DFS. All right, and then everybody's favorite matchup to talk about in the summer while people were doing best ball, like, oh, Miami's going to be so good on offense. They're absolutely going to rip it up. But in championship week, they're going to be playing at home in Cleveland. What's the weather going to be like? Could be really bad. It could be bad for their offense. They don't play good in cold weather. And here we are come January, or excuse me, come late December, and we have they are the lowest game total, or at least tied for the lowest game total on the slate going into this last week here in championship week. So 37.5 Vegas game total. Miami is 6.5 point road favorites. They are 22 for their team implied total, which is 8th best. Somehow Cleveland at 15.5 isn't worse than Dallas, so that's number 17 game. Number 17 team implied total at 15.5 there. Miami side, 17th in pass protection. Cleveland, number 10. They do generate a lot of pressure with Myles Garrett there, getting sacks as well. Pass DVOA for Miami has not been good this year. They're 20th. Fortunately for them, Cleveland's been bad. They're 26th. Despite the pass rush, the back end has been very bad for them. I would expect this to be all right for Miami. They do play quicker, get the ball out quick to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane, everything. It's kind of underneath intermediate type routes here, which kind of mitigates some of that pass pressure. I just think they're going to get home. You know, Cleveland's defense will get home to take some sacks here against Tua, but they do find getting the ball out quick and avoiding some of that pressure. In the run game on paper, Miami should take a lot of backwards runs here. Not looking good in that department. The run DVOA also a -10 on the offense, so Cleveland should be able to put the clamps here on Miami's run game. If Miami's going to be moving the ball, it's going to be via the air and quicker pass attempts, shorter pass attempts to like 4 of their weapons who are all really good at yak and all of that stuff. On the Cleveland side, they're 31st in pass protection, 32nd in pass DVOA. They got Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting, it sounds like. He's absolutely terrible. It sounds like in 6 starts or whatever he's got in his career, he hasn't even beat 170 yards passing in any of those starts. That continues likely with this Miami defense. On paper, not very good at 23rd in pass rush, 21st in pass DVOA, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson is really bad. Expect that to continue against Miami here. And then the run blocking, Cleveland 29th and 30th, Miami 16th and 22nd. Middle of the pack to below average in the run defense there, but it's better than Cleveland's offense. This is just a big gross all across the board. Not good option in the pass, just bad across the board. I hate this actually worse than the other number 8 game. I really don't want anybody in these games. It looks really, really bad on paper for this. So keep that in mind. All right. That's going to do it for the main slate. Let's now get into that Monday Night Football game. Former NFC Championship game, last year's NFC Championship game matchup here. Rematch Detroit heading into San Francisco. 50.5 Vegas game total. So in those island game matchups, that's where I start saying, hey, based off of this Vegas game total, we're probably going to want all offensive players in our 6-player pool. Detroit is 3.5 point road favorites heading into San Francisco here. That gives them a 27 team implied total. San Francisco at 23.5. On Detroit side, 9th in pass protection. San Francisco 12th in the pass rush. Pass DVOA for Detroit 6, San Francisco number 5. This is pretty even across the board. Standard day at the office. Going to have to get the ball out maybe a little quicker, but really shouldn't be that big of an issue. To me, this kind of screams the studs eat scenario. So this is going to be more of a Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta week. Probably getting the ball out to Gibbs as well. Probably more of a Jameson Williams fade week. I don't think he's necessarily going to get shut out, but it might be more of the 3 or 4 targets. He gets 3 or 4 receptions on those targets and gains you 40 to 50 yards, and that's about all he gets. I don't expect him to score a long touchdown, but he does have that capacity. Thing with Detroit, they're very good in the run blocking category, number 1 and number 3. San Francisco has been bad in that category this season, number 19 and number 24. This tells me they're going to really lean on Gibbs, especially in that pass game, as I mentioned before. Now that he's going to get involved in the run game, very successful in that aspect. That probably opens up the pass game a little bit more because they're going to be so successful running the ball. Really, really like Gibbs in terms of what we've seen so far, being in the captain spot. He's probably going to be super, super popular just because we know he's going to get a ton of volume compared to anyone else on the Detroit and San Francisco team. And it seems like it'll be very well warranted. Now on the San Francisco side, there's 19th in pass protection, Detroit 26th in the pass rush. San Francisco 8 in the pass DVOA, pretty good. Detroit 4th. So Detroit, bazillion defensive injuries here, 14 or 15 on the season. Basically, their entire starting lineup is wiped out for the most part. It's bad across the board. Their pass rush is no different at 26th. San Francisco probably has a little bit more time than they're used to throw the ball in this, which is going to be good for their pass DVOA. This number 4 in the pass DVOA, probably a little fraudulent compared to where Detroit is at now after all these injuries. Probably more of a middle of the pack, which is in the favor of San Francisco. I expect San Francisco's pass game to be all right. Otherwise, kind of on paper, a studs eat scenario, which really probably means a George Kittle week for San Francisco. Juwan Jennings has otherwise been kind of their lead target getter outside of last week. I finally played him in a DFS matchup because he's just been dominant. And of course, he flopped on his face for the first time in like 6 weeks when I finally put him into a lineup. On the run category, San Francisco number 7 and 13, Detroit 7 and 10. Detroit really falling fast now after all of these injuries. The last 6 or so weeks, they were really, really good in that category. They've just lost a lot of defensive linemen, a lot of linebackers, and they just can't continue to bring in substitutes and have them play as well as what their starters were. So what looks like a pretty even matchup on paper probably slightly favors San Francisco. Same with the pass game here. Detroit's offense, studs eat. They got several studs there in the pass game, and then the run game being very successful. Does bode well on paper for this hitting the over. The only issue, San Francisco plays really slow. Detroit is 12th in neutral situation, so that could play into effect here. Just keep an eye out for that when you go through this week. It'll be a little bit interesting to see how that goes. But San Francisco should be able to move the ball fine on offense. Detroit should be very good running the ball. Pass game I'm a little bit more suspicious of, which probably means that, if they're running the ball more successfully, that's going to be what they're doing more of. This Vegas game total of 50.5 makes me a little bit nervous just because San Francisco plays slow. If Detroit's running the ball, it's going to eat more clock, and then probably not going to have as many plays run in the game, which leads to a lesser of a score unless you're scoring very quickly, which, based off of paper doesn't look likely. So I'm fine betting the under on this. And really looking at DFS lineups, you're probably going to want Gibbs. Goff looks like he'll be all right. Purdy is an all right play too. Gibbs, get some Kittle in there. Maybe Juwan Jennings is cheap now. San Francisco's running back situation should be somebody who's a little bit cheaper as well. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to find some of these cheaper options. San Francisco on paper looks like they might kick a few more field goals than Detroit, so you can get the San Francisco kicker in there if you really want, especially if you think this game total doesn't hit 50.5, more of like a 46 or a 45 point total, then you might want that San Francisco kicker in there. But that's going to do it for this week 17. This is championship week for most of you. I will be putting out a week 18 one as well next week, but this is considered championship week. Almost the end of the adjusted line play report for regular season. We do go all the way through the Super Bowl, so keep that in mind. I'll give you the plays that you want there. And in the playoffs, it's going to be all of the stuff after the Week 18 stuff gets completed. And then we will use that information to kind of check how the playoff games will go and give you all of the good plays and really, really focus on those prop bets. Those end up being pretty successful during this particular time. So I hope you enjoyed the season. Again, we still got more going through the Super Bowl, obviously, but hope you really enjoyed the season. Hope you learned a lot throughout this process if you're a little bit newer, and hopefully you use this to make some of your fantasy championships, to take that money or that pride, whatever you want to call it, bragging rights at the office type of stuff against your friends and your coworkers and family. This is what that's all about, is winning that money and trying to get you some championships and placing the right start sit decisions, getting those prop bets and everything else squared away so you can feel a little bit better about yourself. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, really appreciate it. Let's go out there, win some money and some championships together. Have a good one, folks. Bye.